I am Marnie Merrilees and I'm a psychologist specialising in high performance. Welcome to the Marnie Merrilees High Performance Psychology podcast, wherever you're watching or listening. My guest today is Matthew Morton, known in the bare knuckle world as the Spider. Matthew survived a childhood no child should ever know and was lost to addiction by the age of 12. Most people hearing where he started wouldn't expect him to be here at all. And yet, here Matthew is, sober, fighting at the top of his sport and using his own story to help others still in the dark. Matthew, welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
First of all, for anyone who's just meeting you for the first time, who is Matthew Morton today?
So today, I like the fact Jen ended that with today. So today, Matthew Morton is a natural plant medicine student, gym enthusiast, professional bare knuckle fighter, and a man of God. I would say that's who I am today. Yeah.
Quite a variety there. So we're going to touch upon all of those as we go through today. So how old are you and how long have you been fighting for?
So I'm 30 years old now, and I've been fighting probably for the past 3 years.
So pretty new to it.
Yeah, on a circuit base, yeah, 100% new to it.
Yeah. So most people know you as Spider, and the name and the cobweb started something to hide behind. So
Yeah, 100%.
So when did the shift from the mask into something you owned?
So the name Spider, obviously, as you say, comes from the cobweb tattoos I've got there. The cobwebs come from a time in my life where I was down and out. I used to go out and get wrecked all the time and just come back, wake up with face tattoos, wake up with different tattoos. The cobwebs stuck with me. As a result of that, people started calling me Spider. Become a nickname right throughout my years of drug abuse and my years of sort of doing bad. As a result, when I got sober, I wanted, obviously, nicknames are hard to change. Like, even if you change who you are as a person and change what you're doing fundamentally as a person, the nicknames still sort of stick, you know what I mean? So I tried, rather than focusing on what it reminded me of and the times it reminded me of, I thought, right, well, if I just use that as my fight name going forward, then it's breathing life into like an already established sort of name and thing in my life, you know what I mean? And sort of taking ownership of it, really.
No, yeah, I can see how that and has it done that? Do you feel empowered now with that?
I did when I first started fighting, but I think I was still in some ways hiding behind it as a persona, adopting it to sort of, I think in a way, who I became when I was getting wrecked all the time, when I was out causing mischief, is probably the person I needed when I was a kid to stick up for me for all the things I went through. As a result of that, that persona sort of at points in my life takes over, pushes personality aside. So for a while, like I said, I adopted it as my fight name and used it going forward to try and take ownership of it. But then when I got baptized last year, I sort of tried peeling away from the whole identity. You know, I'm Matthew. My name's Matthew. That's my birth name. That's the name I'd like to be known as. You know, like in terms of who I am and the character I am. But I've always got to be aware that, like, obviously, Spider and that is still part of my life. It's still part of my identity. But I've got to more incorporate it all under one roof rather than trying to hide behind things or use it to empower myself. Like, at times the name annoys me, at times it doesn't annoy me. Sometimes it depends who's saying it. Like, I've got mates who don't know me from that sort of life, so when they call me, it's not really an issue because they're not saying it like. But then I see people and I bump into people and they'll shout it across the street, and I know them from a different walk of life, and it's like that's when it makes me feel like a little bit of shame about what I've been through. And so I suppose it's more about just moving forward as a whole rather than
Yeah.
trying to adopt little bits that help me or have bits that serve certain purposes. I think like really our character and our sort of personality is defined about who we are and what we do and our actions we put in, not about what we're called and not about how we sort of perceive that.
Yeah. So you've touched on there a little bit about your childhood. So what was life like for you growing up?
So growing up, I had a really chaotic childhood. Even so I was sexually abused when I was a kid. Um, Prior to the sexual abuse, when my mum and dad were together, things were a little bit chaotic. My dad's quite. I don't necessarily think he's a bad person or that he's a bad parent. I think he dealt with me given the tools he was taught as a kid, so learned behaviour. Um, 30, 40 years ago, obviously giving your kid a slap was the done thing, wasn't it? He maybe took it a bit too far in that sense, but I don't think it was out of malicious intentions. And then him and my mum split up. My mum sort of, me and my dad stopped speaking. Just didn't really see eye to eye. Didn't really feel like he was good in terms of paternalness. Do you know what I mean? Like providing sound, like when him and mum were together, he went to work, he did what he needed to do, but um, not really got much emotion. So I think my mum tried looking for like other male role models, positive male role models. And she picked someone that she'd worked for 20 years, trusted him. I was getting kicked out of school. I was a bit of a bad kid. I was always fighting. I was and my mum and dad were splitting up. Like, I'm not saying that's why I was in and out of all these things, but obviously, like for me, it was a bit of a turbulent time. Um, so I kept getting kicked out of school. So my mum looked for someone to sort of take me under the wing to show me how to be a man, I suppose, or like a positive male role model. And from then, from a really young age, I started getting sexually abused. This went on for years. That spiraled in lots of senses. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my identity was. I didn't know where I belonged. I also think it caused a lot of conflict between me and my family in terms of I didn't know whether my mum knew it was happening. Obviously now I'm an adult and I can look at it from fresh perspective and I know she didn't. Do you know what I mean? Like as a parent myself, I know that you wouldn't let your child go through something like that. But as a child, that was my thought process. So it really pulled me away from trusting anyone. It pulled me away from any sort of innocence. And then I started with the drug abuse. Like I was smoking weed at 11. By the time I was 12, 12 and a half, nearly 13, I was on heroin and crack. Um, and then
Yeah,
from
that's
there,
it's a really harsh story. And I'm really sorry that you experienced that. And obviously when you're talking about it now, I know you've spoken about it a few times and you're just talking about it. But it come with a whole load of it's a horrific situation no one should have to go through.
so it's weird when I talk about it. I don't really feel much emotion towards it, but I think because, as you just said, I've talked about it a lot. It's just, I suppose it's become part of not who I am. Well, it is partly who I am. It's become a big part of my story, a big part of why I am the way I am and how I am the way I am. But it's forged me into the man I am today, and I wouldn't change that for the world because
Yes,
there's
you're so brave for being able to speak openly about that. I know how difficult it must be because you're laying yourself wide open, aren't you? And by being honest and open, I know you're doing that obviously for to help others as well, which is also a very courageous thing to do. So I would just like to put that out there for anyone that's listening, and just so they're aware of why you're talking about it. So, what age did you say you were when the sexual abuse started?
so I was about 8, and this went on close about 11 or 12. Um, it caused a real sort of transitional period as well because I went from being a kid to not being a kid anymore, to not feeling like a kid, to feeling distant, lost, and um, frightened. Do you know, like these obviously like as human beings, I think we're all at a level where we know this is a heinous crime and it's disgusting, and anyone that does that is an unspeakable piece of vermin and needs put down. But it's my opinion on them needing putting down anyway. But I think what what happens is like you lose that period of time where you're a kid. You don't get to appreciate your teenage years because it's the processing period. And then I almost felt like I'd been catapulted into being an adult. So like from from doing drugs and going out, like I didn't live at home. I didn't live with my mum from when I was like 14. I got put in care when I was a kid. After I come out about not long after I come out, but or maybe just before about being sexually abused, I got just because of my behaviour, because of how I was outletting my behaviour and the output of it, I was just going out and causing trouble. Like my mum just she couldn't physically cope with me any longer, and she put me in a care home. And the only person that come to visit me was the person that was abusing me. And so my fundamentals of trust and life just disappeared, and I had no real childhood. And then from about 14 to 15, I got sort of thrusted upon taking care of myself independently. Then at 16, I had my own flat. I've never lived at home since. Like, obviously, I've got a better relationship with my parents now. But for me, I missed out on so much. And then as a
Yeah,
result
because
of
16 is a really young age to be independent, isn't it? Looking after
yeah,
yourself. So, like you're saying, you feel like you lost your childhood because you were surviving, weren't you?
yeah, and I've sort of been in survival mode till I was about 26 or 27, really. Like I think a lot of what I've been my own worst enemy in my life. So I look at obviously there's reasons why I maybe chose to pick up drugs and use drugs in the first place, but a lot of decisions I've made after the fact have resulted in my life being pretty turbulent and pretty chaotic. And I've been my own worst enemy in that sense because there's been plenty of times where I've battled with addiction, I've got through it, and I've done a few months here, a few months there, and then I've chose to, do you know, because I'm past the point of it being a physical need, it's a mental need then, and then it's almost a battle of will and discipline.
It's a
Um,
coping strategy, isn't it? And I guess once you've learned that coping strategy and once you've learned it worked for you, it's hard to have that then taken away. It's finding other coping strategies.
Yeah, healthy coping strategies, and I think self-sabotage, like as much as people don't, I suppose if it's not something you really experience on a heightened level, it's maybe not something you really recognize. But like I recognize in myself that like self-sabotage is a massive has been a massive part of my life. Things can be going so well for me, and then I'm like, oh, it's almost like subliminally I feel, oh fuck, this feels strange because things are going so well. I don't know how to cope with it, but I know that if I do this, I'll fuck everything up and I'll go back down to rock bottom. But I'm comfortable navigating around the surface down there because I've been there my whole life. Um, so it's like, whereas now I'm in a really comfortable place. And do you know, like I went and watched the BKFC last night. My coach Mickey Nolan was fighting. Incredible performance, incredible show, incredible guy. The movement he's got, be the example, is incredible. It's to get men out, holding themselves accountable, training, eating fresh, and doing good. And we all train. We're all part of a group chat, and I think that is really good. That's been a good standpoint of my life as well, is joining this group and seeing other like-minded people that you can sort of push along the way with you. Um, Discipline's not really been something I've ever experienced in my life, apart from if it's come from a courtroom or a law and it's been inflicted and imposed. Because self-discipline's not really been something I've ever had. And then 3 years ago, maybe more than 3 years now. When I got sober, I went to rehab, and I thought to myself, right now I'm sober. All I'm responsible for is my own actions from here on out. Like I'm not responsible for anyone else's actions, how anyone perceives me, how I'm perceived, how I get myself. to A to B. I need to just focus on remaining sober and being disciplined. So I took everything as a day at a time, and then days blend into weeks, weeks blend into months. And then now it's like, go to the BKFC last night, and everyone around me is on the drink. Um, Loads of people, you're queuing up for the toilet, loads of people on the coke and getting on it. And now for me, it's the most unattractive thing anyone can do in the life. Like I look, like obviously, like if people can have a quiet drink, fair play to them. Like, hats off to them. It's not something I can do. I can't sit down and have one drink. So if I have one drink, I'll have 1,000 drinks. If I have 1,000 drinks, I get on the coke. I'll end up on the crack. I'll end up on the heroin, and then it's straight back to, well, probably worse than it was ever, because I'll lose everything then. So for me now, I like the fact that I can go to these things, look at people, and I think, oh my God, you think that you are hiding the fact that you're on cocaine and it's dropping out your nose and you look a mess, and people are pissed up and they're falling into things and they're spending loads of money. And I think I spent £7 on drinks yesterday because I had 2 cans of Coke. I come home,
It's a
I got to
win.
bed. Yeah, I win, and I wake up sober, fresh headed, and I've enjoyed the night. I can remember everything. I got to see my mate win, got to go and support the gym. And for me, that's been like a cornerstone for me. Like discipline has been, like even on the back of my t-shirt that I've got on at the moment, it says disciplined. Like it's just a massive thing for me. And whatever that discipline is, whether it's going to the gym, I've recently just started um, studying plant medicines, and I'm studying on an American course, and the time zone's completely different. So some nights I'm up till 2 in the morning watching lectures, and then I'm still up for the gym every day at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, if I need another sleep, I'll maybe come back and have a sleep. But everything in my life is regimental and disciplined. So university, college, and then I've got gym, but everything fits
So you're
in.
finding that routine and the discipline really, really helps. So just going back to like what do you want people to understand about your childhood and what you took from it? Obviously, it was a horrific time. The sexual abuse led to the drug take, and so what, like for lessons learned for people who are listening who have
So
maybe been struggling through this themselves?
for lessons learned, you only get one family, and like I've put my family through the absolute mill. It's burnt relationships, and I would be very careful about like what sort of actions can lead to completely burnt down relationships. Some relationships I've had I'll never get back. But my biggest takeaway from life is uh, ultimately, if you're out and keeping yourself busy, so I keep myself busy with the gym, boxing, and things. It's a good distraction. It's a good tool. I think having gone through stuff like that, I think it's good to get one, the emotions outlet, whether it's through boxing, exercise, running, whatever your niche is and whatever it is you enjoy doing, do it. And you know, use the energy and the hatred to hyper focus on it. Like, so now my things are training and staying sober. And I use all the spite of what I've been through when I was a kid and all that to fuel me on, because otherwise I'm in a stage in my life where if I just succumb to everything and become a junkie and I end up dead, then I've lost. Like I've lost the long game. I've not just lost the short game when I was a kid. I've lost the whole long game. Like I've let it derail my entire life, and I'm not prepared. I'm just not prepared to do that anymore. So my biggest advice to people is, if you're going through anything like this, is to go and talk to someone about it. Like I know you think you might not be believed, but even if you're not believed by people around you, go and seek professional help, and get your life back. There's so many enjoyable things to be out here doing, and it's just finding what you like doing, and taking your life back. And then when you take your life back, you'll start implementing structures, routines, and things like that to give you a bit more of a beneficial life. And now, like, I wake up every day happy, grateful, and always ready to go out and help and do better and be better. And that for me has been like a cornerstone of getting sober, is wanting to give the world back everything I've taken over the years.
Mm. And when did you talk about wanting getting people to talk, to speak out if they're going through a similar situation? When were you able to first do that? Talk about what happened.
So I didn't come out about what I'd been through when I was a kid till I was about 14. And it was a bit of a weird situation. Like I'm one of these, so there's I think going through what I've been through when I was a kid, I've developed quite a dark sense of humor. Whether it's been through coping mechanisms, whether it's been through drug taking, whether it's been through hanging around with weird people, being weird myself. I've got quite a dark sense of humor. But when I was a kid, I didn't understand humor to the same as what I do now. And someone made a joke about a child being abused. I was washing dishes. I was working at Round Fawn Hotel in Penrith at the time. And I must have only been about 14. Someone made a joke, and it was in that moment when I heard the joke and I heard the punchline, I realised, oh, I've, that's what's been happening to me. Like, I know it seems stupid, like like you should know that that's been happening to you. Like, I knew I was being like raped and I knew I was being sexually abused, but I didn't quite know how to put a word on it. I didn't know how to I didn't know what. I knew what was happening physically, but I didn't know how to describe it. I just thought if I ignored it, it would just stop and it would go away and I'd forget about it. And then when that joke happened, someone said a joke, and when the punchline dropped, I realized what I'd been like just the pit of my stomach fell. And it was at that point I was like, right, I need to tell someone about this. And I was going out with someone at the time. And I think I told my girlfriend at the time and her mum was like, right, we're gonna ring the police. And that was when things started to get better.
Yeah. So that was a big turning point. Very brave to speak out as well about that also.
Yeah, it was difficult, and I think what made it more difficult for me was the time of year it come out. So I must have been 14 because it was December. My birthday is December 10th, and I remember sitting in a police interview room on my 15th birthday giving video evidence. So it sort of destroyed my birthday and Christmas for a long time because I often associated that time of year with that memory. Um, I think I'm over it now. I think
And
I
that whole process as well in and of itself, going in doing a police video interview and being asked questions and all of that, that's like a whole re-traumatizing all over again.
yeah, of course, it's daunting, like especially at that age, like I my mum sat next to me, and then I've got my mum's husband on the outside, and I'm thinking I don't want these people to listen to this, and like because it's like the video interview room, you going into detail, and then like watching my mum's heartbreak in front of her, it's difficult, and then just for myself as well, like how I felt afterwards and how how much of a slow process it all truly is. Like that's what it made me realize. Like you've got the video interview, and automatically I always thought that he'd be arrested and he'll be remanded, and that wasn't the case. He got let out, and then you've got people in the town where it happened. Questioning me as to whether I'm lying or and it become like a big issue around my life, and I just blocked out by going and taking drugs and moving from town to town and different. Oh, I'll move to a different city. I'll run away. I'll be all right. And then get there, and it turns out your problems follow you if you don't solve them. You know what I mean? Like what I had going on was an internal problem, not an external problem. But I was trying to run from all these external things without having to do any internal work.
Yeah, it must have been so confusing for you though at that such a young age to have all of that go on. It's a lot.
Oh, it is a lot. And then from that a year later, flash forward a year later, and I'm living on my own, in a town 30 miles away from anyone. I mean, 30 miles isn't far, but 30 miles away from anyone I knew. I started in a new town. I got myself in college and I went and studied business. But that for me was like a really monumental time in my life because it was the first time where I felt right, everything's on me now. Like it's on me. Like if anything goes wrong, it's my fault. I can't. Well, that's the mindset I hope I'd have adopted. But reality is, like, I had to learn to do everything. So, like, learning to cook for myself, learning to pay my bills, learning to clean my clothes so that when I went to college, my clothes were dry. And then falling behind with bills because I was a drug addict, and then getting into rent arrears to the point where you're getting excluded, like kicked out your
Yeah.
house, getting another house, falling into the same pattern to become to a point then where you get banned from housing, and it's like everything I've tried doing, I've tried obviously with the best of intentions and always with really good intentions, but my problem was, as I said before, I was my own worst enemy. So
Yeah.
when
And
taking
when, sorry,
drugs,
sorry.
no, go on.
No, I was just going to say, while you were at college, you're trying to do college work with everybody else who's living in a home, having all this done for them. And you're living on your own, trying to figure out how to cook and, like you say, get your clothes sorted and show up and to survive and then try and do assignments. It's like, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard work, and as I say, I was a full-blown heroin addict, so trying to get anything done to a deadline or anything that wasn't just getting high was really difficult. But I think there come a point when I was 18 where I come into some criminal compensation because of what I went through. I think, I got, I wouldn't say a substantial amount of money. I got some money. Um, I mean, to be fair, for the podcast's sake, I got £16,000 when I turned 18 from what I went through, which, to be honest, I don't think is a lot in terms of like mental damages and I spent it in 3 months because I didn't like everyone kept going to me, oh well, you could get a mortgage on a house so you could buy a car, and all I ever thought was if I bought something of any significance with this money, I'm only ever going to think, oh well, you've only actually owned this house because you were abused when you were a kid, or you only own this car because you got abused. If you weren't abused, you wouldn't own this, you wouldn't have it. So I didn't really want the money to set me up with anything for the rest of my life because it sort of felt like blood money. So I just spent
Yeah.
it getting me and everyone around me wrecked and doing copious amounts of drugs and doing just stupid stuff. Really, you know what I mean? And trying to navigate myself through college and trying to piece together who I am. And then I think not long after I got into college, I got my ex partner pregnant. We had a kid, and life got really heavy really fast. And I was a really shit dad.
How old were you when you had your first child?
18,
Young again,
and I,
isn't it? To have that responsibility.
yeah, and yeah, my partner at the time, she was a few years older than me. I think I can't really remember off the top of my head, but like I was trying to navigate life, and I was a really shit dad when I was, like for the first 9 years of my son's life, I've not been present. I've not been a very good dad. I've not paid no money towards. Well, I've paid sporadic bits of money, so I'd get sober for 3 months, pay for 3 months, go on a bender, not pay. So I've not been a very present dad with him, which I mean, to be fair, it's my biggest regret in life because now I'm sober and clean. I can see the damage I've done to him in a mental state. I can see the damage I've done to his mum. Like with her trying to get me to have a relationship with my son. Um, and I see the damage it's done to me, but I only see that now on a reflective thing. Like my son's my world. Like I love him to pieces. He's a cracking little lad, full of personality, but I don't know him. Like I know him a bit, but we're more like friends than we are father and son. Do you know what I mean? Because I
You have
haven't.
a relationship with him now, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I pay for him now. We speak on the phone. I get to have him when we go out for days out and stuff, and we do things. So it's nice, and that's a progress as to where we were 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So hopefully, in the next 3 years, next year, there'll be more progress to be made. Like that's my biggest regret is obviously not giving him the life that he deserved and being the parent that he deserved and needed me to be. But all I could really deal with and be was the person I knew how to be. And at the time, that was a scared kid taking drugs. And I mean, for anyone that's listening, I think if you're a hardened user and most people, when they're told, right, you can have a baby, that'd be the time, right, I'm going to stop the drugs, I'm going to stop the coke, I'm going to stop smoking crack, I'm going to stop going out and committing crimes and selling drugs with my mates because that is counterintuitive. But for me, it didn't. I was like, oh, I still need to go out and get high because I couldn't put drugs down and I couldn't put drink down. And it didn't. Like my son, should be the only option I ever needed to get sober, and it wasn't enough. And that sounds really bad saying it, and it does. But the only thing that could get me sober was when I needed to get sober for me because I couldn't cope anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. So I wasn't doing it for other people. I was doing it
I
for me
think,
because
and
I
that's the
needed to.
most important thing, is about doing it for yourself, because ultimately you'll end up relapsing if it isn't for yourself. It has to come
Yeah, of
from you,
course, of
you know.
course. I think because you spend so long saying, right, oh, I'm giving this up because of this, because of this, because of this, because of this, and then that thing goes, and then it's falling back, isn't it? So I think doing it for yourself, you understand why you're doing it properly. Like it's affecting me. Like I died down an alleyway in Manchester with a needle hanging out my neck. That's what got me to rehab. But there's thoughts like that, which that's like where it's like, all right, I need to really change because I can't keep going through this. I can't keep putting people through this. I can't keep letting my son down. But like I can't do that for me. Not for them. I can't do that for me because it's not who I want to be as a person. That's not who I am as a person. It's not my character. It's just what drugs have turned me into. I think drugs have a really fast way of stripping your morals.
Mm. So that was a turning point for you, when you decided that enough was enough.
Yeah. So I was down. I was living at Maple Crescent over Westley near Manchester, near Wigan. Um, and I was getting in all sorts of trouble. I was going and holding shops up, and just I think the price of drugs there is really cheap. You know, you can get £5 bits of crack, £5 bits of heroin. So all I ever needed was a fiver to get going during the day, and it's very easy to get £5 during the day. And then I remember going and getting my stuff. I remember going for my methadone at the chemist, and I thought, oh, I've had my methadone. I'm going to go round the back of the chemist, and I'm going to pin myself, and then I'm going to go home. And I remember sticking a needle in my jugular, and that's the last thing I remember. I remember waking up in a mental health hospital 3 weeks later, Averley Park in Lee. And to be fair, the woman, the pharmacist, who lovely woman, still speak to her to this day, has obviously come out on a break, seen me gouching, seen me killed over. She sat with me in hospital for 2 days. I've gone to a mental health unit, and she's visited me every week. And since coming out of that mental health unit and getting into rehab, she's messaged me every week. We speak all well. Now we speak a little less than we did, but that for me was like a really like a guardian angel
That's
almost.
lovely. It is. It's lovely.
And it was at that point, when I'm like, right, well, I'm starting to affect people's lives now that I don't even know. Like this is a random woman who works in a chemist, and then it's like you sort of start to do a bit of reflection. Then I sort of started to think, well, I've done my withdrawal now, and I've woke up. I've just come round and I'm through it all. So like to go back seems really fucking stupid, and seems really, really just not worth it. And then I was like, right, well, you say this all the time. This was my thought process. You say this all the time. You're in a mental health unit. You're going to get out of here. You're going to do a month or two sober, and then you're going to go and fuck it up by going out for a drink or getting on something. So it was at that point I thought, right, I best get into rehab. I went to rehab. In rehab, started going to the gym, lifting weights, training. And I was like, oh, I enjoy this. This gives me peace of mind and clarity on everything. Like if I'm feeling shit, I can go and do this. That then traded that coping mechanism of drugs to a coping mechanism of, all right, I'm angry, I can go and punch a punching bag. Oh, I need to get some stress out. I'll go and lift a load of weights because by the time I'm finished, I'll not remember it. And that was sort of where, for me, good routine started coming.
How long were you
Not
in rehab for?
8 months.
It's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was a good little rehab. To be fair, I wasn't always in there just as a patient. Like the last couple of months, it was sort of volunteering and helping out and giving back. But it was a Christian rehab, which for me was everything I needed because it opened up the door to me to God. That like they kept saying, like I don't know. So fair when you look in the Narcotics Anonymous book, you look in the Alcoholics Anonymous book or the Cocaine Anonymous book, they all say you've got to believe in a higher power and something higher than yourself, whether you call it the universe, whether you call it God. And for me, I've always sort of toyed around the idea of God, and I've always, when I've been getting in trouble, I'll pray to God to help me out. You know what I mean? So it was when I was in a class in the rehab center, and they said, look, if you can pray to God when you're in trouble, then you've got a belief system there because you pray when times are hard. So when it really matters, that's when you are. But I bet when things are going right, you don't thank God. And it was at that moment I was like, do you know what? That sounds like a lot of shit, but I'm gonna do a bit more research into it. So start going to church, start hanging around with people from church, start going to more meetings and talking about God. And I was like, oh, like I feel incredible. Like I feel mint. Like I've gone and I've spoke to a priest and I've spoke to a pastor and we've talked about what it is that's gone on in my life and they've reassured me that it's not my fault. And I've been like, oh well, if God was real, this wouldn't happen. And they're like, no, God gives every man free will on this earth. Do you know what I mean? And when I started asking, I thought, oh, I'm going to annoy this person by asking them loads of questions. Ask question, 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 and they give me answers, and I'm like ruminating on the answer, and I'm sitting thinking about, actually, that makes loads of sense. So then someone said to me, well, if you're going to come to all these meetings and you're going to come to church, why don't you sit and read the Bible? I was like, that's probably a good thing to do. I like to read, so I thought and educate myself on what I'm going to church and learning about. So it's not just a Sunday thing, then it becomes a week thing, you know what I mean? So then it was every day when I was going to the toilet, I'd sit and read 10 pages of my Bible, or just before I go to sleep, read 15 pages of my Bible, and that become a daily thing. And then I got baptized, and I can honestly say my faith and my Christianity has been the biggest. Like, fighting's given me a lot of structure, it's given me a lot to focus on. I was still quite angry when I was fighting. Like, even even as I was coming up through the church and learning more about God, I was still really angry. I was still annoyed about the things I've been through when I was a kid. I was still a
Still
slad.
processing everything.
Yeah, yeah. And then I got baptized and I just didn't have any of that anymore. That was like the rebirth. I wanted the rebirth I had envisioned, when like pulling spiders, my fight them, that he dunked under that water and being at church, that when I come up, I was like, right, it's a fresh slate. That was in my head. It's a fresh slate. So now I've got to go out and I've got to do everything I can to push myself forward, push everyone around me forward, help heal people, but also help like close the gaps. So start enjoying life and start, remembering who I was before all this abuse, before all the drugs, remembering who I am to be able to reconnect with. And who was I? I was just a happy kid that loved going around kicking balls and playing football with my mates and running about. So exercise was always a big thing for me. It's maybe just something I didn't realize, you know what I mean? And now it's God's given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Like,
So,
I've
how long ago was it when you got baptized?
about 2.5 years ago.
12 years ago. I guess what you're describing there as well is about you finding yourself again, isn't it? Because for so
Yeah, of
long,
course.
but after the sexual abuse, you obviously that you were surviving for such a long period and the addiction and everything. And then when you got clean and then sort of found God, then it's you finding yourself again and who you are and
Yeah, well, I
reconnecting.
think I think finding myself from the start, really. Do you know, like, because I think from such a young age, I didn't know who I was. Obviously, I was too young to know who I am and what I wanted. So I've never really made any deep thoughts about what I wanted from life, what I wanted to do. The avenues I wanted to take and how I wanted to get there. And yeah, my baptism and getting sober and finding God allowed me to sit and really look at my life from a reflective angle and sit and think, right, well, what do I want? Right. I like fighting. That's what I thought when I was punching the punching bag. I thought, oh, I love fighting. I wouldn't mind doing this. So started taking fights and doing that and pushing all the energy I've ever used to hyper focus on getting drugs and getting high and doing mischievous things and getting in trouble. I've put into my boxing, into my sobriety. And now I'm by no means an incredible boxer. To be honest, I'm more of a scrapper than a boxer. And I'm never going to be a world champion. But I enjoy it. It keeps me focused. It gives me something to remain disciplined for, and it keeps me turning up. Fighting then became a big part of my identity and my personality about who I am and what I thought was. But God allowed me to dwell deeper into myself and realize that's just something I enjoy doing. It's just a hobby. It's something I can, or as a job, but it's not my entire being, and it's not who I am completely as a person.
So what did having this faith in God give you that nothing else did?
Uh, the realization that I wasn't on my own all the time. Um, it gave me something to have faith into, something to hold on to, someone to talk to when I feel like I've got absolutely no one, someone to listen to my problems. And when I think about all the things I've been through in my life, all the horribleness, I'm still alive and I'm still here. So someone's got me through that, right? Whether it was me or whether it was God. And I truly believe that God has never let me down. God has remained faithful to me and to everyone else in their whole lives. And it's just about recognizing that and seeing it. And that really made me see it, that I'm not alone. So all this anxiety I used to feel about, sitting in my own company, and I'm never on my own. I've always got God by my side, and that's something that really sat with me and made me feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Whole. So stop filling the voids in my life with drugs and drink and meaningless stuff, and I just filled the void in my life with Jesus. And I never thought that'd be enough, but it's amply more than enough.
Hmm. No, thank you. And you mentioned at the start that you've been to an ayahuasca retreat. Can you tell me a
I
little
have,
bit
yeah,
about that?
yeah. So this was probably one of the most exciting, unusual things I've ever done. So I'm obviously a professional bare knuckle fighter. I was signed to BKB. Um, Mark the Shark Irwin. Shout out to Mark the Shark Irwin, by the way, because he's an awesome guy. He's one of the main reasons I got into bare knuckle boxing. I've been watching Mark Irwin for years. He fought on BKB, well, BYB, and he fought on BKFC, and I just thought, oh, that guy's cool. Like, he had leopard print hair and loads of tattoos, and I thought, oh, like I like this guy as a character. So I've always followed his career, and then obviously I got signed to BKB. I've done a few interviews and that, and my one of my posts may have popped up on his feed, and he was like, "Oh, hello." He sent me a message. "Hello, we're looking for fighters to come on this athletes retreat in Colombia." And I messaged him back, as much as I would love to do that, mate. Like I really would love to do that. My financial situation is not in a place where I can afford to live, but I can't afford to just jet across to South America. And he was like, "Send me your email address." Sent him my email address, woke up in the morning, I had all my flights paid for, my travel paid for. He says, all you've got to do is pay for your own train ticket to the train station. Your food's included here, your room's included here, just get here. Um,
That's nice.
which, oh, incredible, incredible. So that come from Mike Valgadez, who's the owner of BKB, donating a load of money to Ian McCall's charity, Athletes Journey Home, who Mark Owen works closely with. Went on this retreat. Life changing, life changing. So I've say worked with plant medicines before. I've done magic mushrooms before, and I've done hallucinogenics, but not of a sober mind, and not recently. I'm talking years and years ago. So this for me was a big thing because it made me question my sobriety. Will this, question my sobriety? But I thought, well, if I'm going to heal and it makes me better, and there's a lot of research done into it, and we're going to be we were part of like a medically studied trial, and there was a documentary getting filmed on us there. So I thought, do you know what?
Cool.
I'm not going to come back worse than what I went. So worst case scenario, I'm exactly the same as I am, and nothing changes. Best case scenario, my life changes. Um, and I was seeing a lass from Middlesbrough when I went over to Colombia. She was 12 weeks pregnant when I went. Um, first day I got there, first day, well, about 3 hours before the first ayahuasca ceremony, she messaged me to say she had a miscarriage. Um, so I was devastated. One, because I was on the other side of the world and I couldn't be there to sit with her and help her through her thoughts and feelings. And two, I felt like I was at a really good stage of my life. Like everything was going really well. You know, the career was going well, sobriety was going well. I'd met a girl I thought I was in love with. She did get pregnant really fast. Like we slept together, I think the first time I got her pregnant. So it's like there was things that weren't ideal in the situation, but trying to make the best of every situation, you know. So it was like she said she was pregnant, you know, we talked about it. She was like, oh, I want to keep it. I really was excited to be a dad, but to give it my all from the start this time. So to really invest myself from the start and have a really good family life. In Colombia, she texted me to she had a miscarriage. I was devastated. I remember crying my eyes out. And Ian
That must have
McCall,
been so difficult being so far away as well.
yeah, it was because I was almost trapped there, but not trapped, like it's a bad way to say, but like trapped in the sense of like I was stuck in this retreat with people I didn't know, and I'm like, my girlfriend's at home having a miscarriage. I feel shit that I'm not with her, and I'm 2 hours off going into my first ayahuasca ceremony, and now I'm absolutely shitting myself. Um, had some comforting talks with Ian McCall and Mark Irwin, and a couple of other people there, Gareth and Clinton, and Jared, and they all sat with me. They let me cry, they let me feel my feelings, and they sat and talked. And I said, "Look, I don't think I'm in a mental state to be able to go and do ayahuasca." And they said, "We've come all across the world to heal, and now you're going to not heal when you need it the most." And I went in and I did ayahuasca for the first time, the first ceremony, had the first cup, puked. For those watching that maybe don't know about ayahuasca, you purge a lot, so you puke, diarrhea, and it comes hot from both ends. So you got to be pretty fast. And in amongst this, you hallucinate, and it can be a bit of a wild experience. I went to the toilet carrying my bucket. I'm sat on the toilet. I'm having an awful time at this point. Like I'm just passing it from both ends. And then all of a sudden, I'm crying my eyes out and I'm looking down in my arms. And it's such a weird experience. I'm sat on the toilet at this point, and there's a wall in front of me, a wall at the side, wall behind, because it's like a cubicle. So I know no one's in there. I know no one's come in because I've locked the door behind me. I'm looking down, and there's this, not just what I can see, I can feel the weight of this baby I'm holding, and it's crying its eyes out, and it's talking to me in a boy voice, you know, and don't worry, Dad, like nothing you could have done any different would have kept me on this earth. But when it's your time, when it's our time to play together, we'll play. But for now, you just got to get on with yourself, and like I'll just get on with me. Just take care of yourself and be all right. Everything's all right. And then cried my eyes out for a little bit, and I looked down. This baby was gone. So that was like for me a really monumental part of my life, part of the experience. Like that gave me closure on something that previously just happened a couple of hours ago. Not complete closure, obviously, because there's still the emotional distress of it all, but it gave me a form of closure. And I think in retrospect now, it's probably why me and my girlfriend split up when I come back from Colombia, because I felt like I was very far along a healing process and she wasn't. And bless her, like she was going through her own stuff, I was going through my own stuff. That for me was quite a pivotal point. Like I thought, oh, this ayahuasca is actually that that's really cool. What that's done for me there. The second night, I had an even more profound experience. I'm sat crying my eyes out, puking into a bucket, and this what I felt like a hand on my shoulder, and it was like, "Oh, Matthew, don't worry. I've seen all the trials and tribulations you've been through in your life, but listen, the reason you've had to go through them is so that other people can come out of what they've been through and see that someone can get through it." So it's like, I got interviewed for a magazine and they quoted me, I found God in the depth. I didn't find God, in church. I found God in the depth of despair. But all these trials and tribulations have forged me into the person I am. And, I'll go back into the fire to help other people. I'm not going to walk away from the flames or walk into the flames. And that really cemented for me that I need to be helping people. Now, I thought that meant maybe helping people through church and doing a leadership course at the church. But, you know, again, speaking to Ian McCall, speaking to people around there, and they said, "Oh, would you like to be an ambassador for the?" We've not really got many people in England. A lot of them were all American. Would you like to be an ambassador for the English side of a athlete's journey home? And I was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be incredible." Then from there, it was like, right, I was like, look, hyper focus because I've got bad ADHD, and when I get interested in something, I'm like, right, this is it. This is the pinnacle of my life. All my life exists purposely just for this. So I started at the College of Natural Medicine, studying natural medicines and nutrition. Um, and then I've gone on, I'm studying psychedelic integration work with Being True to You. And then I'm doing a psychedelic mentorship course with Anaya Science. And my time's really stretched thin.
So you're doing a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, but I really enjoy it. So
Yeah.
it's like the three courses seem to coincide quite well. So information, and because I started them all roughly at the same time, they seem to be pipetting along at a similar sort of level. So things that maybe like I'll learn in week 4 in psychedelic integration, I'm actually learning in mentorship on week 2. So it's been really good in terms of chopping and changing information and learning with Americans, learning with some Canadians, and then I'm learning with English, and it's good to get different views and different aspects and different cultural views on things. Um, so my time, even though it's stretched, I really enjoy it. Like that's a big thing for me at the moment. It's something I really enjoy. As a result, we're pushing forward with Athlete's Journey Home. I've got a bit more involvement with it. So there's some
Yeah, so
fighters retreat.
just can I just
Yeah,
ask
go
for
on.
people who for listen like for the viewers and people listening who haven't heard of this before, could you just describe a little bit about what it is?
So Athlete's Journey Home are a charity made up of Ian McCall and Mark Irwin, and they basically through combat sports have received traumatic brain injuries. They know other people that have received traumatic brain injuries. Plant medicines, whether it's psilocybin, which creates neuroplasticity, and can sort of, get rid of long-term depression, PTSD. It's the same with ayahuasca. It can help heal unresolved trauma, but it can also revert traumatic brain injuries, head injuries, things like that. So I think the plant medicine one, it can do things for a mental aspect. It can do massive things for the physical aspect, but it can do things for the spiritual aspect. And I think that's all in all, it's soul, body, and mind as a medicine. And I think you look at all these pharmaceutical medicines that are about at the moment, they rely heavily on addictions, opioids, and they just sort of mask the problem. They don't actually fix anything. They just hiding the problem. Whereas I think going and doing these plant medicines, one, they're the original form of medicine because they've been around for thousands of years. You go back to the Aztecs, you go back to the Mayans, and they all practiced cultural beliefs with mushrooms and things like this. That was part of their hunting experience, part of the healing experience. So as far back as we can remember, these have been medicines that have healed us. So why now, when we're not allowed to use these, we look back at like when Rockefellers and big pharmaceutical companies come in, they banned holistic medicines and they banned all sorts of holistic medicines. At one point you would have gone to the doctors and said, oh, I'm depressed. They'd have sent you out on a walk. They'd have given you nutrition advice, exercise advice. They don't give any of that anymore. You go and you get a tablet, and I don't think any of these doctors know about nutrition advice. They don't know about exercise advice. And this is all where as a Western world, our medical industry is failing because we're looking at prolonging and masking problems rather than solving them. And you go to these indigenous cultures and you go to indigenous places and you take these plant medicines, and all of them are really happy. They're all in good places in their life. None of them really get ill. And you look at what's changed. Well, they're not ingesting loads of chemicals and toxins all the time. And for people that don't think ayahuasca or anything's safe, like the generations do it. These have been around for generations, and young kids take plant medicines in these cultures, and they're perfectly fine. And I think the healing's next to none. Like I went with a traumatic brain injury from um, a bare knuckle fight where I got my orbital broke, and I've come back and I've had my brain scanned before I went, during it, after I've come back, and the doctor's like, "Oh, your brain's healthier than it was before you got your brain injury. And I'm like, yeah. So I just think that shows the power of what these plant medicines can do. So studying them, I thought, oh, brilliant, I can learn everything about them now. And it gives me another avenue. So I'm not going to be able to fight forever. And a lot of people I know are all fighters. A lot of the industry I come up fighting. So if I can help fighters with brain injuries heal and get a good way of life, it almost comes back into, or help people who have been through sexual abuse, or help people who have been through drug addiction. Like Ibogaine, another plant medicine said to cure 87% of addictions from the first try. You know what I mean? So like, why these things aren't being explored more when we've got fentanyl addictions, heroin addictions, cocaine addictions, um, is beyond me. So I'll just take it upon myself to study it and spread the word, and that's sort of where I'm at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It's a really good thing that you do. And between the Western society and the East, how they view mental illness is very different. Um,
Oh, completely.
yeah,
So like, I think in the Western world, we don't. I think in the Eastern world, everything mental comes from spiritual. So they feel like they can help you spiritually, they can help you mentally. Whereas I think a lot of and you look at these cultures and they spend a lot of time with their families, they spend a lot of time out in nature, they spend a lot of the food that they can either catch and kill or they can grow it themselves. Like there's no processed dietary, there's no processed sugars, there's none of this what we have as a Western world that really toxifies our mental health. So scrolling through I'm the worst for this as well, by the way, is doom scrolling. I got on Instagram for a 10 minutes in the morning. I'm on it for 2 hours scrolling, watching 3 second reels. And that's what we've been conditioned to as countries and as places. We're conditioned to seek comfort. We're conditioned if something doesn't feel good that we leave it alone. We come and we plunk ourselves in front of TVs and we live a very almost Groundhog Day life day to day, but it's doing like you look at animals in captivity. That's where they're miserable. They're not miserable when they're out in the open and out in free. And I think as humans, we spend a lot of time in like captivity, and that's why I think mental health's viewed completely different. It's not viewed as like a proper thing in this country. It's just viewed as something to take this tablet,
yeah,
and you'll stop feeling any feelings. Whereas, they want to explore why you're feeling like that, and then you do these integration sessions about what you've seen, and they say, "Oh, well, it could mean this, it could mean this," and for me, plant medicines really illuminated the parts of my life that I needed to fix. So obviously, they're not just going to fix everything straight off the back. Create neuroplasticity, which lasts up to 28 days, which can help, in thinking about things differently, create new thought patterns, create new habits and behaviors. But it's not like a magic fix all tool. You've still got to go and put the work in. And I think
yeah,
that's what, as a society, we've come away from. We want quick cheat codes. We want everything to happen
yeah.
now. No one wants to do the work. No one wants to put the discipline in. So a lot of people go and use plant medicines and they keep going back and using plant medicines over and over and over again without doing any real integration work. But the real work comes with the integration work. The
Yeah.
plant medicines will illuminate the path. It's still up to you to walk down it.
Mhm. Yeah, in terms of the neuroplasticity, like you're saying, it's up to you to do the integration, to do the new habits, to do the new behaviors that you want to be ingrained, that you want the neural connections to strengthen up for, like the new healthier habits and behaviors. If you just do it and then go back to your old habits, well, you're just gonna go back.
You're just reinforcing old habits, aren't
Yeah.
you? It's nothing changes until something changes. Whether it's your thoughts, whether it's your behavior, whether it's your actions, but it all needs to come together. And I think like, plant medicines are really good at illuminating what you need to do. And like I needed to realize that I needed to come away and work on some own issues out of relationships, work on my social dynamic a little bit more. But I still need to come back and work on my social dynamic. It's not just going to make me social and fix it straight away. And the integration works where all the fun is, I think. Like the experience is fun in itself, but it's just that, it's an experience, and that's all it'll ever be, is an experience if you don't put the work in. The integration work for me has been some of the most challenging part of it, but it's been some of the most rewarding and fun part of it, because that's where you can track your progress, realize where you've come, and you can look back and think, oh my goodness, like I'm in such a different aspect of my life as to what I was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago. Like I'm constantly trying to just better myself, whether it's in boxing, whether it's in whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's in learning. I constantly like to do better the next day. Um, I think that's what life's about, really, isn't it?
Mhm.
Get to a
Yeah,
point where you don't mind putting the work in, you can be disciplined to keep yourself right, but you also got to have fun and live
mhm.
life.
Yeah, because yeah, that's what life's about, isn't it? Enjoying yourself also.
Yeah, the human experience is just that. It's about experience, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you for sharing that. It's really be helpful for people listening. Um, and then you mentioned about the paths that you could have taken when you got sober. What actually drew you to doing the bare knuckle?
Uh, I've had loads of fights over the years around the back of pubs and down alleyways, and I really considered myself tough. Um, I started fighting on the unlicensed scene, hybrid boxing, which is boxing and MMA gloves. Liked it, but it didn't feel dangerous enough, so I got into bare knuckle. On the unlicensed scene, I trained normally. I was winning all my fights. It was when I went professional I realised there was an up to the level. Some of these lads that when I turned professional have been fighting for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and I was just new to it. So it was at that point I realised I maybe need to go away and learn to box and structure myself and give myself a bit more discipline. So I'm just always adding always adding tools to my arsenal to be able to do better. But the bare knuckle for me, just exciting. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie still. You know what I mean? Like if it excites me and it makes me go, oh, then chances are I'm probably going to enjoy it. Um, I like glove boxing, but always just felt like heavy sparring. Whereas bare knuckle, it's like there's a bit of immediate danger and it scares me a little bit.
So where are you at in terms of your bare knuckle at the minute?
Um, so my last bare knuckle fight was in Scotland, and I got knocked out. I didn't even throw a punch. I went to throw a jab, and I got caught over the top with a left hook and a right hook, and knocked out. Um, so I've had some time away from fighting. I've been focusing on lifting weights and training weightlifting at the moment, but only because I think when I first started fighting, up until I got knocked out in Scotland, I fought every other month or every month, whether it's been unlicensed, whether it's been professional. And I started, when I first started fighting, I fought at 86 kilogram. Then it was someone asking me, oh, do you reckon you can get to 82? And I got to 82. And then from 82, it was, do you reckon you can get to 79? Then from 79, it was, do you reckon you can get to 76? And I'm 6'4" and I got myself down to 75 kilo, which is really skinny. And I felt really ill. But because I was hammering that much cardio and doing boxing and fighting that regularly, I couldn't put any weight on. Didn't matter how much I ate, I couldn't put any weight back on. So I took it upon myself and I thought, right, this was April. And I thought, right, I'm going to stop fighting for a little bit. So stop fighting for 2 weeks and ended up getting a last minute phone call. Oh, we've had a pull out on a glove show. Can you come and stand in? So I went and stood in. And then I got another random phone call maybe 2 months ago. Oh, do you reckon you can stand in? We've had a pull out on a 4 ounce fight, so I've gone and done that. But just taking a bit of time for myself, just lift weights, get a bit of strength back. Put like I've gone from fighting at 75 kilo, I'm up at 93 kilo at the moment. So I put on like nearly 20 kilos in weight. I feel loads healthier, and I feel like probably what I'm going to do is just enjoy the rest of this year, enjoy Christmas, carry on lifting weights, and then January get back into a fight camp for maybe March, April time, and have another bare knuckle then. But maybe start fighting again at 84 kilogram, 82, which is what I was when I first started fighting, and I was winning and feeling strong and fit and healthy. And the more weight I've cut, the less healthy I've felt. So I think that's my plan going forward, and just to enjoy a bit of me time. Like I'm I've been getting punched in the face every week for like the past 150 weeks. It's nice just to not have to go on 3 mile runs and not have to go on. Like I still do a bit of sparring and I still go and maybe do a couple boxing sessions a week, but I'm not flat out in camp. Like I don't. I like if I want to have a cheesecake, I can eat cheesecake. If I want to have a coffee with some milk in, I can have a coffee with some milk in. Whereas when I'm in fight camp, I cut all the unnecessary sugar out, and then living like that for 3 years because I was fighting so often, I sickened myself a little bit. So like now I'm just lifting really big heavy weights and just having a little bit of time, and then I'll get back to the boxing. But I still go and watch the boxing. I still, watching and going to support all my mates because it's a massive part of my life. And I think even when I eventually stop fighting altogether, it'll still be a big part of my life. It's given me a good foundation to build a platform on to be able to one share my story and be able to help other people. It's given me a good platform to be able to get my fights out there. But ultimately, it's given me a new lease of life in the sense of like it's given me something to do. Give me a healthy routine to focus on and aim for.
Yeah. And fighting in itself's got highs and lows, hasn't it? How do you hold yourself steady through that?
Um, love winning. Um, love winning as everyone does. And my mum always goes, "It's not the winning that matters; it's the taking part that matters." But that's just not how it is in my head. Like I train to win all the time, but probably lost my last 3 or 4 fights. Um, Maybe overtraining, I don't know. But yeah, it's um it's been a difficult one, I think, really, like the transition. Um, but I need to train. That's my problem. I struggle to rest. Like my ADHD means I'm like constant. So like I've had to find other things to do to rest and to chill out a little bit and get back.
So where does your head go when you lose?
Um, it's just a part of life, really. Like I don't enjoy it, but I've realised something in my life now that the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me has already happened to me when I was a kid. So now anything other than that's just it is what it is. That's how I deal with most things in my life. Like significant losses, wins. I think, well, you're not going to be winning forever, mate. This is going to come to a crash, but it's never going to be as bad as that. Nothing in my life will ever be as bad as that. So I sort of dealt with everything. I'm like, losing, I'll feel shit. I can mope about in my bed for a day and eat some pizzas and feel sorry for myself. And I think to myself, I'm quitting fighting. I'm never doing this again. And then Monday comes and I'm back in the gym and I'm like, when we're getting booked in for another fight. So it's just got used to it now, I think.
That saying, "It is what it is a good saying. I like that. I
Oh,
love
the
that
best,
saying.
the best
It's the
saying. And
best. It
my
is what
mate
it is.
extends it. So I always go, it is what it is. And my mate always goes, because it can't be anything else, Matthew. And I'm like, well, it's facts,
It is
yeah.
what it is. Yep. I like that saying. Um, so you're just talking there about saying it is what it is and that you can manage the losses. But what do you do on a difficult day? What does a difficult day look like for you now?
Um, this is going to sound really far-fetched, I suppose, in a sense. I don't really have difficult days anymore. I think most things about mindset. I've managed to change my mindset to be grateful for things, even when I'm great. I'm great. I feel quiet in my life, and I'm grateful for that because at some point I'm going to be rammed and I'm going to be looking back on this. So again, that's something Rehab taught me was to write a gratitude list, 10 things I'm grateful for every day. I've done it every day for nearly 3.5 years now.
I've seen that on
And
your Instagram on the morning, yeah.
and I get loads of messages from people going, "Oh, you've inspired me to do it," and they'll send me theirs. And that's one reason that I carry on posting it every day, because it started off as just a private thing for me. But I think it's a really good way to start your day because you're grateful from the get-go. Then you're reminded of 10 things that I'm grateful for. So start my day off being like, "Oh, I'm grateful for this." And anything happens in between, I just remind myself what I'm grateful for, remind myself why I'm doing it, and I just move on. Difficult days for me maybe look like my rest days because I have to sit and not go to the gym and do stuff. But other than that, like my day-to-day life doesn't really have any drama in. I don't have any animosity or ill feelings towards anyone, and I hope that anyone that has any animosity or ill feelings towards me from back then can find it in their heart to forgive me, and anyone that knows me now will know that I have no animosity and drama in my life, and that I don't bring that to other people's lives, so I don't expect it brought to mine. Um, but yeah, in terms of bad days, I just sort of, if I'm having a bad moment, I'll pray. If I'm having a bad couple of hours, I'll read the Bible and pray some more, and that's pretty much my cornerstone for getting through bad times.
So you've mentioned as well, you've spoken before about trauma living in the body. Can you tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about that? So obviously we're talking about how do you cope logically when you're having a bad day. So what do you do with the trauma that lives inside the body?
Well, so I think trauma that lives inside the body is really I don't think quite well understood in terms of like for your average person, like trauma and one, you've got ancestral trauma from generations before you that carries on. Um, but one thing that I really have enjoyed learning about on my courses is that your gut is like a brain. Yeah, your gut's a brain. So anything that you feel in your gut will then tell your head to feel that way. So if you're feeling ill, you'll feel it in your gut. When you get a gut instinct, you feel it in your gut. Even as far as drugs, you usually feel them in your gut first, then to your brain. So I think, like in terms of how I feel with things in my body, if it's an energy or what I feel is an energy, I can sort of pray that away. If it's an uneasiness and it's an unlike, I just sit and think about it, sit and try and process it, write it down, and try and make it into a culpable feeling. Um, but I think anything your gut's telling you, and anything your body's telling you, is there's something that needs work done, whether it's nutrition, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health. I feel like all three of them things can box off good mental health and good physical health. You know, like
Yeah.
being mentally well aware of yourself, mentally pleasant, being physically active, getting some exercise. Nutrition is massive because people are so quick to eat all this processed food at the moment that's laced in seed oils and it's hormone blockers and it. Do you know, like even down to the deodorants and the skincare regimes where they've got, like male products with loads of estrogen in, and it's there's big things at the moment that I don't think the average person realizes. Like for me, like fluoride in toothpaste is a big thing. I won't use fluoride toothpaste because the calcifying of the pineal gland. So I think there's definitely stuff in every aspect to look into if you're feeling like your body's off, because like naturally you can solve that, I think, pretty well with physical exercise, good nutrition, or good spiritual health.
So it sounds like you've got a really good self-awareness about what's happening in or around your body. Because I asked the question because one of the therapies I do is internal family systems, and it's taken from shamanism, and it gets people to be aware about what are you feeling, what are your bodily sensations? Because a lot of time, especially in the West, people are disconnected from how they actually feel.
Yeah, like when you feel anxiety, I'd feel it in my chest, and do you
And
know,
you,
like you get certain feelings in certain parts of your body, and that usually tends to give you a good indication as to what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. I think it's massive, and same with generational trauma. Well, I don't think people realize how massive that is. You know what I mean? Like you like especially like for our generation, you've got your grandparents who've been through world wars, and all this stuff still affects you to the day. Still affects your nervous system regulation. It's still, like you get deja vu or deja remi where you've had dreams and you think, oh, I've had this dream before, and then the moment happens. And I think this is all brought on by like generational trauma and knowing things through past lives or future
yeah.
lives, and I think sometimes that's why you get the uncertainty, which again can sit in your gut and in your feelings because it's not natural to the body. So your body's trying to push that feeling to the surface, isn't it? To get you to want to sit with it and to try and process it.
Mm. Yeah, so you put your hand on your chest, and so you sort of checked in with yourself and identified where it shows up. Because you've done the work where you'll sit with it wonder, like, what's this trying to show me? What I'm at? What do I need to sit with and figure out? Whereas a lot of people will just override that and not listen. So they've got so much held and stored in the body that's not being processed and released, and that's how it can turn into sickness in the long term.
Yeah, that's how people end up with like autoimmune diseases, and it's because it's your body naturally rejecting things. So, like I was saying this to someone the other day who's got Crohn's disease. I says, not being funny, I says, but if you switch your nutrition and your exercise, it might help. Oh, you don't know what you're on about. You don't know what you're on about. And then they're eating McDonald's, which is seed extract, which comes from seed oils. And the point of the autoimmune and the version of Crohn's they have is that they can't have seed extracts. I'm thinking, well, you're not. I'm not saying it'll solve everything, but you're not doing anything to sort of help yourself. You know what I mean? But I think again that comes with recognizing your body, recognizing what you can and what. Like I didn't realize I was lactose intolerant until I started fighting. I just thought I'd always had bad guts. And then I had to lose a load of weight for a fight, and I was like, oh, I'll just cut dairy out. I'll cut the milkshakes I'm drinking every day out, and I'll cut the milk in my coffee and the cheese and that out. I was like, oh, I feel incredible. I got no more bad guts. And it was at that point I was like, I think I've got mild lactose intolerance. Like not to the point where like it stops me drinking it, but it just makes me uncomfortable. And it's now something that I very rarely introduce to my system.
So obviously we've talked a lot about what's happened to you. We've touched on a little bit about where you want to go. So what are your plans now, say for the next 5 years?
My next 5 year plan, well, my first ever 5 year plan, I suppose, is to pass my courses, build a better relationship with my son, um, carry on focusing on God and what I'm doing, um, and maybe try and get into a bit of coaching. I think that's like life coaching, transformational coaching. I think that's what I want to do, or psychedelic coaching, integration coaching. But I think that's where I want to be. I think I would like to look eventually at moving to South America, um, being at Colombia or Peru, um, and just learning all the information I can. Because eventually, one day, I want to come back to the UK and open up my own retreat. That's what I want. That'd be where I'm at, whether it's a psilocybin retreat, obviously based within the parameters of the law as well. So you got to wait till things open up. But you look at America and they're opening up the psychedelic doorway massively fast. So I think that'll probably spill out into the UK. And as a result of that, I think we're going to need people to be trained up on the West, on the Western side of things, but with the indigenous cultures, because I think what we're very good at doing is going into these countries, taking what we want from them and coming back and adopting no culture and no tradition with it. And I think half of the medicinal value comes from the rituals and the way you cleanse your body, the way you cleanse yourself, the way the medicine's presented to you, and the ritual and tradition that it falls in line with.
A sense
I
of community as well, isn't it? And
Oh, massively, yeah, massive. I think sense of community, sense of being, and just it's not something we've just discovered. You know what I mean? These have been around for years, and these cultures have used these plant medicines for years. So who are we to go and tell them that we shouldn't be using it like that or doing it our own way? We should, respect the traditions and respect the culture that it comes from and adopt that into our own. So I think going and learning and educating myself about the whole thing, and then maybe putting it into practice would be where I see myself.
sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it does.
Definitely needed, isn't it? And for what would you like to say to someone who feels like they have no one right now?
So if you feel like you've got no one, listen, my inbox is always open on Instagram, Matthew Morton BKB. Drop me a message. I'm always open to helping people find services, helping people talk. But also, like, if you're feeling down, you feel like you've got no one to talk to, the chances are you've got friends and you've got family that would rather you burden them with your problems or not burden them, but tell them your problems and attend your funeral. You know, I've got loads of mates that would be pissed off if I rang them at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I guarantee they'd be more annoyed if I was dead at the bottom of my bed. So I think,
That's
never bottle things up. But if you really have no one, my inbox is always open for everyone.
kind. So you speak openly as a man about very hard things. So what do you think stops men from opening up?
Um, Society's conditioned us to believe that it's not acceptable. I think a lot of men feel loved for what they provide and what they bring to the table. They don't feel loved for themselves. I think women and children on a day-to-day basis are loved unconditionally. I don't mean that in the sense, I mean by the world. Like men are not loved by the world. I think there's a big thing, at the moment with, being masculine's toxic and all this stuff, and men just feel like they can't really go anywhere and talk to anything. I'm really open about stuff because it is what it is. It's already happened. And I want people to know that talking about it can save your life, and talking about it can save someone else's life. Bottling up is just going to cause no end of heartbreak and animosity for yourself. You know what I mean? There's no way to live your life.
Mm. So if you could speak to the boy you once were, what would you say to him?
Don't worry, kiddo. Things get better. I'm
Mm.
writing a book at the moment, yeah. So I'm writing a biography at the moment. And I start the book with a letter from myself as a child to myself as an adult, and the plan is I'm going to end the book with a letter from myself as an adult back to me as a child. Um,
That's
but
nice.
that's been a hard process. I'm about 12 pages in, and I've been writing it for about 4 months. Everyone's like, oh, just blast through it and proofread it. I can't do that. Everything's got to be perfect before I move on. It's just how I work. But it's been quite an emotional process.
Yeah, but quite
Um,
cathartic as well for you,
yeah,
part of the healing process. So it's just, yeah, you've got to do it in a pace that works for you, haven't you?
yeah, and I think when it's finished, it'll do me good. Even reading it back, but it's just getting it all out there. There's a lot there that even when I come on podcast doesn't get unmasked in the same way that I'll be able to unmask it with words. You know what I mean? Because obviously, you remember things, you forget things, you remember things. But when I'm writing that, it's like, oh, it'll trigger a memory, or put like a very in-depth memory, and then I can write about it in my own way, and I don't have to worry about how I come across. Do you know? I
Yeah.
still obviously writing in a professional manner, but it's my story, so I can speak in the language I want to speak in. I can describe things the way I want to describe them. I've not got to be sort of like, um,
PC.
poli- yeah, politically correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's really hard to write a book. Well, I've started writing a book, but I haven't really got very far with it either, like yourself, but I'll get there
Oh,
eventually.
it's so difficult
It's so
because
hard.
like trying to remember things and trying to remember them in a chronological order, or trying to remember, and then you get like I got 4 pages down. I'm like, oh, I missed the main part of this. Like I've just started ranting on about something else and I missed it, so I'm going back. So my mate Mark, he's actually an author. He keeps saying to me, just sit down with me and I'll ghostwrite it for you. And I think I might take him up on that offer one day.
Yeah. It's a thought, but then also it's the personal.
Yeah, like that's what I'm enjoying about writing it. I'm enjoying writing it in my own way and getting it out for myself and proving I can do it. It's again sitting and thinking. It's been quite a good part of the healing process actually, about ruminating on things and sitting and thinking about it. And then the penny drops like a week later. I'm like, oh yeah, now I can sort of put the work in to fix it.
Yeah, that brings us nicely on my next question. I've put life is a bit like a book. The past carries different chapters, but there are chapters and not the whole story, and they're not who we are. So every day we get to write a new page. And just what are your hopes and dreams for all the pages still to come? I know you've touched on a bit so far, but in terms
So
of if you're thinking about what you can offer to others, because you said that gives you a lot of purpose.
so I think I'd like to set up a coaching, like I say, get into the coaching, whether it's life transformational, whether it's recovery focused, or whether it's psychedelic focused. I think something with coaching where I can help other people, that is a big part of my life. And the chapter's still yet to come. I'd like to have a family. I'd like a better relationship with my son. That's going to take perseverance and commitment and work. But I'd like a family. I'd like to find a partner. I'd like to settle down. I'd like to get married. Um, you know, I'd like to travel the world. I'd like to go and work in South America. But like realistically, I think the biggest thing for me that I feel's missing is a family. You know, I've not got mountains of money, but I've got everything else I want in life. Like I'm pretty much at a point where like everything I've ever thought I wanted, I've got, or everything that I keep hatching out for plans and goals to get, I get. Um, and that's the only thing that's really missing is someone to share my time with and my company with. Do you know what I mean? And but good things come to those who wait, or so I've been told.
Yeah, so that's the direction you see your life heading in now, a more stable sort of family.
Yeah, more deep rooted. Do you know what I mean? Like I like going. I want to have a family. I want to be able to take my son and my daughter to church. I want to be able to, like just instill good family memories and core memories and go on holiday and do things and build good memories with a family. I think, that's the next chapter.
Yeah,
Well, I
that,
hope that's the next chapter.
that's nice. So someone listening right now is where you once were, caught in addiction and certain that they were gone too far. What would you say to them?
You never gone too far. You're never too far gone to get help. It's
Um,
just you gotta get. Sometimes you gotta hit rock bottom. Sometimes rock bottom's got a cellar door, and sometimes that cellar door's got another cellar door, and you keep going down, but you're never too far down that you can't be reached.
and what do you think's the most helpful piece of advice you could give to somebody, something you learned on your healing journey?
Don't be annoyed at yourself for what only time can teach. And I heard that saying, and that's massive. Like, there's lessons in life that we all have to go through, and that some of us don't go through, but some of us do. And the only thing that can teach you differently is hindsight. When you think, "Oh, I wish I'd never done that," I'll look back. That's only something time can teach. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Some of us will make the same mistake multiple times. Um, it's life. It's life. You know what I mean? Some of us learn a bit slower than others, don't we? You know what I mean? But it's fundamentally it's the same. It's the same core experience for everyone. It's just your perception and your views and the way and the things that happen to you shape your life and shape how you live it and how you see the world. But just because it's your perception doesn't mean it's fact, doesn't mean it's true. So, like if you think in the world, you think you can't get help and you think you can't come back from this, you can. You know what I mean? That's just your perception. It's not fact.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So before we finish, where can people find you and follow what you're doing?
So TikTok, Matthew Morton BKB, Instagram, Matthew Morton BKB, and they're the only two platforms I have for social media. A few podcasts on YouTube, a few fights on YouTube, but most of my Instagram page, Matthew Morton BKB.
Thank you, Matthew. I'd just like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for speaking so openly about where you've come from and being a beacon of light so someone else may find their way out. And that's a very precious gift that you're giving back to the world. And if this moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it and follow the show so the next episode finds you. I'm Marnie Merrilees, the high performance psychologist. Until next time, dream big and go make it happen.